in this section of the course, we're going to be discussing security awareness. Now, security awareness refers to the knowledge and understanding that individuals possess regarding potential security threats and the measures that can be taken to mitigate or prevent them. Our primary goal of security awareness training is to equip individuals with the necessary skills and knowledge to recognize and respond to these security threats and ultimately to protect both personnel and organizational data from those security threats. Now, in our increasingly digital world, cyber threats are always evolving and attackers are continuously devising new methods to exploit vulnerabilities. Phishing emails, malware attacks, and social engineering schemes are just a few of the many techniques that cyber criminals could employ. While technical robust defenses are vital, human error remains one of the most significant vulnerabilities inside of our enterprise networks. So, by the end of this section, you should be able to understand the common threats, recognize potential risks, and have a clear idea of the best practices that you can employ in your daily digital interactions to maintain a more secure environment. Now, in this section of the course, we'll be focused solely on Domain 5 and only on Objective 5.6. Objective 5.6 states that given a scenario, you must be able to implement security awareness practices. First, we're going to discuss how to recognize insider threats. An insider threat is a security risk that originates from individuals within an organization, like your employees, former employees, contractors, or business partners. These individuals have inside information concerning the organization's security practices, data, and computer systems, and they could exploit this information to harm the organization intentionally or unintentionally. Next, we're going to take a look at password management. Now, password management refers to the practices and tools that are used to create, store, and manage passwords for various online accounts and systems. Proper password management will ensure that passwords are strong, unique for every account, and stored securely, and this will in turn reduce the risk of unauthorized access. Then, we'll discuss how you can avoid social engineering attacks, including techniques like maintaining good situational awareness so you can avoid shoulder surfing and eavesdropping, as well as avoiding using removable media and cables that don't belong to you, and how to avoid phone scams and people trying to get information out of you, and how you can maintain good operational security across your entire organization. After that, we'll discuss policies and handbooks. Now, policies are formal, documented guidelines or rules that define how an organization operates and makes its decisions. They're going to provide a framework for consistent decision-making and actions on specific issues or topics. Handbooks, on the other hand, are comprehensive guides that provide information on specific topics, and they often serve as a reference for individuals within the organization. For example, you may have gotten an employee handbook that outlines the company's policies, procedures, and their expectations of you. Next, we're going to explore the world of remote and hybrid work environments. Now, remote work refers to a work arrangement where employees can perform their job functions outside the traditional office environment, and most often, this is called work from home or working from another remote location by leveraging technology and other things like the internet. Hybrid work, on the other hand, is a model that combines traditional in-office work with remote work. Employees in a hybrid work model may spend part of their work week in the office, and then they'll spend the rest of it working remotely, and this offers them a good blend of both environments. Then, we'll discuss how you can create a culture of security in your organization. Now, a culture of security refers to an organizational mindset where every member of the organization prioritizes security inside their daily tasks and their decision-making processes. In this kind of a culture, individuals are continually educated about potential threats, and they're proactive in taking steps to mitigate risk. The emphasis here is on a collective responsibility to protect the organization's data, assets, and reputation. And then finally, we'll take a short quiz to see what you learned during this section of the course, and review each of those quiz questions fully to ensure you can explain every answer and why it was right or why it was wrong. So, if you're ready, let's get started in our training on security awareness practices in this section of the course. In this lesson, we're going to cover recognizing insider threats. Now, one of the most unpredictable and potentially dangerous aspects of security is the human element. You see, security isn't just about external hackers and malware. It's all about understanding and recognizing the risks that are posed by individuals within an organization that are often referred to as insider threats. These threats can be intentional or unintentional, and they can result from various factors, including personnel issues, financial struggles, and their dissatisfaction with their own job. Because our employees can become a major threat area for us, it's really important that you train your users on how to recognize anomalous behavior, especially those who are demonstrating risky, unexpected, or unintentional behaviors that might flag a particular individual as a potential insider threat. Now, it is important to remember that a user's behavior can be a clear indication that there is something malicious going on inside of your organization. Changes in our users' behavior can signal an underlying issue that could translate into a future security risk for our systems and the data they contain. For example, if you have a coworker who shows up to work drunk, or they're still severely hungover from the night before, this could be considered a risky behavior that is a sign that something isn't right inside of their personal lives. If this happens one time, maybe they just had a long weekend and partied a bit too much. But if you're seeing the same employee coming into work hungover every single day, this could be a sign of a major issue inside of their personal life. Now, why is this something that you need to consider as a cybersecurity professional? Well, if somebody is coming to work in an altered state like this, it can affect their productivity and their workplace safety, as well as raising some significant concerns about their judgment. Their impaired state could also lead to unintended disclosure of sensitive information or the intentional misconduct that occurs because of a compromised decision-making process inside of that individual. For example, I used to work for the US government, and for many of our positions, we were required to maintain a security clearance. Now, personnel who are reporting for duty in an altered state like this were considered to be a huge risk, and they were flagged to have their personal lives investigated a little bit more in depth because the US government has learned that people who have a substance abuse problem are more likely to be coerced into making poor decisions, like compromising the system's security on behalf of another nation state, or to sell government secrets to another nation state. Next, you should also look for any signs that somebody is emotionally distressed. An individual who starts giving away their personal possessions or starts to show signs of depression may be undergoing some severe emotional turmoil. Now, you might be wondering, how does this relate to security? Well, again, individuals in an emotional distress may not be as vigilant in following security protocols, which could lead to unintentional breaches. Worse yet, they might be vulnerable to exploitation by malicious parties, your competitors, or even a nation-state actor who's trying to get an insider to help inside of their attacks. Therefore, it's always important that your management and your human resource departments are called in to help engage with any employees who may be suspected as being in an emotionally distressed state, because this needs to be done using empathy and offering support and assistance while mitigating those potential security risks that this person is representing against your organization. Now, let's talk about your lifestyle incongruences. Now, this is a funny term that's used inside the exam. What we're really talking about here is when an employee is demonstrating a lifestyle that doesn't quite fit into their personal situation or financial structure. For example, if you're working as a system administrator who's making $80,000 per year, but you're driving around in a brand new $150,000 sports car and you're living in a $2 million home, this probably doesn't fit or align with your income or your financial structure. Now, does this kind of behavior automatically mean that that person is going to be an insider threat, or that they're going to be selling your organization's secrets to earn extra money? Well, no, not at all. Sometimes you're going to look into the person and realize that even though they only make $80,000 per year, they're married to a neurosurgeon who makes $750,000 per year, and so the car and the house are well within their ability to afford those expensive things because of their total income inside of that household. But if you look into the employee's personal life and you find that they're a single individual and they come from a family who doesn't have a large amount of money and they just bought both the car and the house within the last 6 months, and now things are starting to get a little bit more scary for us as an organization because this person might be involved in some illicit activities, some theft, or selling of your corporate secrets to be able to pay for all of these incongruencies. This behavior does require a discreet investigation to rule out any kind of foul play while ensuring that you don't jump to conclusions or violate your employee's privacy, but it is something you have to be aware of. For example, if you work for the US government and you have a security clearance, you're going to be required to fill out a financial disclosure form whenever you're first hired. This document tells the government about you and your family's financial resources so they know what forms a normal baseline for your particular family. Now, if you happen to receive a large sum of money from an inheritance, you win a large cash prize at a casino, or you win a sweepstakes or lottery, you're going to be required to report that to the government so they know that it is now within your ability to buy that expensive house or that car because of that unforeseen windfall that you just had that was outside of that normal baseline. Now, if you don't report the windfall, now the government might suspect some foul play on your part, and they might open an investigation into your finances and spending habits to determine if anything suspicious was actually occurring, or if you just got this money from someplace legally. While having too much money can be an indication that somebody has already done something illicit to gain that money, like selling corporate secrets, financial struggles, on the other hand, are going to be at the other end of the spectrum, and they're another red flag we have to consider. An employee who's drowning in debt might exhibit signs of stress or discuss their financial woes with some of their coworkers. This kind of financial stress is a security concern for us because financial pressures can make individuals susceptible to bribery, or it could tempt them into selling sensitive organizational information to your competitors. For this reason, it is vital that companies have policies in place for handling this kind of scenario, such as providing financial counseling options to the employee to help them overcome their financial difficulties, or by monitoring for unusual access or transmission of confidential data by the infected employee. So how do we tackle these kinds of personal security issues without creating an environment of mistrust within our organization? Well, it all starts by establishing a robust insider threat program. Your insider threat program should promote a security culture that encourages employees to report suspicious activities, provides training to recognize warning signs, and implements policies that support mental health and financial well-being. The program must also ensure fair and confidential processes for investigating any potential insider threats. Organizations should also employ user activity monitoring tools to help in detecting anomalous behavior, such as unusual access patterns, extensive copying or downloading of sensitive data, or working odd hours, because all of these could signify a potential insider threat. However, it's essential to balance security measures with the privacy rights of your employees. So remember, recognizing insider threats is all about paying attention to the warning signs and having procedures in place to handle them appropriately while creating an environment where employees are comfortable seeking help and where the company takes proactive steps to mitigate your risks. Remember, a secure organization is not just one that has the best firewalls or the most robust encryption mechanisms, but it is the organization that is looking after its people because they understand that security starts from within. As cybersecurity professionals, we must always remain vigilant, empathetic, and proactive in recognizing and managing the human aspect of security threats. This approach not only safeguards sensitive information and assets, but it also fosters a supportive work environment that is essential for the holistic well-being of your organization. In this lesson, we're going to cover the concept of a password manager. Now, a password manager is a specialized tool or plugin or extension that can be used with your web browser in order to remember all the different usernames and passwords you have for all the various sites that are out there. Now, one of the biggest vulnerabilities or traps that I see end users falling into is the fact that they reuse their passwords. And this is a really dangerous practice because if you're reusing a password across multiple websites and one of those websites gets hacked, well, your password is now known by everybody on the dark web and they can try using that across other sites as well. We saw this happen many years ago when sites like MSN or Yahoo or Target had gotten breached. Then the attackers took those usernames and passwords they got from that breach and then tried it across many other sites. And if you reuse the same username or password across multiple sites, they would have access to all of your data. One of the biggest challenges with this password reuse is that most usernames are going to be the same because most usernames are going to be set to your email address. And most of us use the same email address across multiple sites. So it is really important that we use a different, long, strong, and complicated password for every single website that we're going to use. Now, unfortunately, as humans, it's really hard for us to remember a lot of long, strong, complicated passwords. So there is this function called a password manager who can do this for you. And this is what we're going to talk about in this particular lesson. Now, many of our web browsers have a password functionality built into it directly. For example, if you go into Google Chrome, you will find that when you go into the settings underneath the three dots, that you'll be able to go into your autofill area. And from here, there is a built-in password manager. Now, you're going to notice here that I actually am not using this password manager. And most of the time, I actually prefer to turn off the feature to offer to save my passwords or to use auto sign-in with this password manager. The reason is, personally, I find that password managers that are built into another tool, such as a web browser, are not nearly as secure as those that are standalone third-party tools. So instead of using the built-in password manager inside of Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, Apple Safari, or Mozilla's Firefox, I tend to prefer to use a third-party password manager like 1Pass, Dashlane, LastPass, or Bitwarden. In my case, I actually prefer Bitwarden, and that's what I'm going to show you how to install as a third-party extension into Google Chrome and how you can use that type of a password manager as you move forward with your daily work. Now, in order to install Bitwarden, which is the password manager I want to use, I need to first go into the extension store, and by going into the extension store or marketplace, I can download the extensions that I want. So I'm going to go up here into my three dots, I'm going to go over here to my more tools, and then I'm going to go to extensions. From here, I'm going to be able to search my extensions, which only search what's locally on my computer, or I can click the three lines on the left-hand side and go down to the bottom to open the Chrome Web Store. From here, I now have a trusted area to download different tools, plugins, and extensions that I may want to use. In our case, I'm looking for a password manager, so I'm going to type that in, and you're going to see there are lots and lots of password managers out there, but the first three that come up are the ones that are featured by Google, which include the Avira Password Manager, LastPass, and Norton Password Manager. In addition to this, if you click on the More button, you'll see all of the other extensions that fit the term password manager, sorted by either ranking or being featured because they paid an extra fee to Google. In my case, I only want to consider any password manager that is going to be 4-star or above, and so I can do that by clicking on the ratings over here, and if I want to be even a little bit more stringent, I can say I only want to look at 5-star rated programs. Here, you can see that the first one that pops up is Bitwarden, which is the one that I personally use, and I really like it and trust it. To be able to use Bitwarden here, we'll simply click on it, and this will allow us to go and add this into our Chrome as an extension. Go ahead and click Add Extension, and this now gives this password manager the ability to read and write passwords as you're entering them into different sites, and to be able to use those and hold those as an encrypted and protected vault that contains all of your sensitive information. Once you have that done, you can go ahead and close this tab, and then we're going to go ahead and close this tab and this tab as well, bringing us back to our settings area. From here, I'm going to click on the little puzzle piece icon, which is for the extensions, and you'll see that Bitwarden has now been installed. If you click the little pin next to it, this will pin it to your taskbar at the top, and you'll see it's now located right here. From there, you can click on Bitwarden, and then you'll be able to log in, sign in with an enterprise account, or create a new account. Bitwarden is a completely free password manager that you can use on a personal level. But if you're like me and you have a corporate account, you can log in using those corporate account credentials as well. And there is a fee as a company to be able to have a Bitwarden account across your entire organization. And it allows you to share passwords with other people as well. And this makes it really useful, especially if you want to share passwords in a more secure way. In our case, we're going to go ahead and create a new account. And I'm just going to put in my email address. In this case, I'm going to use Titan Cipher, which is an account I use for demonstrations. And I'm going to give it a nice, long, strong password. Once you've done that, you can then retype your master password. And this password is what's going to be used to be able to create that encryption, and it's going to encrypt all of your documents and all of your passwords using this same password. This means if you ever forget this password, you will now have no access to any of the other passwords you have, because this is the encryption key. So it's important to choose something that is long and strong, but also something you can remember. The great thing about using a password manager like this, though, is you only have to remember one long, strong password, because everything else will be stored by this tool and be able to be used anytime we log into a site. Now that I've done that, I'm going to click the I am human by clicking the CAPTCHA, and then I will submit this, and this will create my new account. Now that my new account has been created, I can log in. So I'm going to use Titan Cipher at gmail.com, and then my nice long strong password that I just created. This will then decrypt this vault and allow me to access anything inside of it. Once you've done that, click I am a human, and then log in. From here, you now have your vault, and inside your vault, you can add different items. For example, let's say I wanted to go in here and added a new account, for example, Gmail. The username for that was Titan Cipher at gmail.com, and then we can select our password. If we have a current password that may not be very secure, like password, we can put that in and it will save it for us. Or we can choose to have it generate a random long strong password for us. If I click that button, you will see it will overwrite the current password with a nice long strong password. From here, we can choose to either use a password or a username, a password or a passphrase, and how long we want it to be. In my case, I want it to be a password that's at least 14 characters long, has uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters. And at this point, I have everything the way I want. I can go ahead and hit select, and this will then create that nice, long, strong, random password. Now, don't worry about memorizing this password because it doesn't really matter. Once we save this and we try to log into Google, it's going to be able to use this password for us to be able to log in to that account. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save here. And now that I've done that, you can see that Google is here. If I want to be able to get my username from that, I can click on the head, and this will copy that, and then I can paste that anywhere I needed to, for example, right there. Or if I wanted to be able to go ahead and grab that password, I can again click right into here, type in Gmail, and then click on the password key. Once I do that, it's copied that long, strong password again for me. And from here, I'm able to paste it in, and you can see that long, strong password. In addition to that, when you go to a website like Gmail and you try to log in, it's going to allow you to be able to log in using that BitLocker login. So I'll click here, and it will be able to find that I have Gmail. And from here, I'll click on that, and it will allow me to copy in that username. In addition to that, we can then put in our password by doing the exact same thing, going into here, selecting our Google account, and then copying and pasting in that password, and then clicking next in order to log in. And from here, we're now logged into this account, and we'll have no issues moving forward and using Bitwarden. Now also, whenever you're using Bitwarden, anytime you try to log into a new site for the first time, it will ask you if you want to remember its username and password. For example, let's say I wanted to go and create a new account at something like Carnival.com, which is a cruise provider here in the United States. If I want to do that, I can go here at Carnival.com, and then once I get to the website, I can then click on Create an Account, and from here, I'm going to go ahead and enter in the username and password that I want to use. In this case, Titan Cipher at gmail.com, and then when I go to password, again, I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to choose a random password using my generator. Once I have that, I'll paste it in. If I hit Show Password, you'll see it's that same password I just had, and then click Sign Up. Once you get to the website and you click on Login or Create an Account, in my case, I already have an account, so I'm going to click on Login, and when I go here, it's going to be able to go and find that inside of Bitwarden, any passwords that I've already saved there. So if you click here on Bitwarden, you'll see that I already have Carnival.com and Titan Cipher at gmail.com. If I simply click on my name here, it will automatically fill it in both locations and allow me to click Login to be able to access this website, just like I could if I entered the username and password myself. The really big benefit of using something like Bitwarden is that you can have all of your details in one place and one secure method that is fully encrypted and protected using the long, strong password that we created as our original master password. This protects all of the other passwords, and if I log into my actual Bitwarden account I use at work, I have hundreds and thousands of different passwords, and I can control them all from within Bitwarden, and I only have to memorize one key password that serves as my encryption phrase. So keep this in mind when you're using your password managers. Password managers are an awesome tool to give you additional security and prevent you from having password reuse across your organization. In this lesson, we're going to discuss avoiding social engineering threats. Now, in the complex landscape of cybersecurity, avoiding social engineering is a topic that demands our attention and understanding because it is so prevalent these days. Social engineering, in its most malicious form, is deception where a bad actor attempts to manipulate individuals into breaking their organization's normal security procedures by playing on human psychology. Often, social engineering attacks appear to be innocent, and this is likely the key that the attackers are going to use to trick your employees into breaking your organization's security, which is why awareness and vigilance are going to be used to create our first line of defense against these types of social engineering attacks. Now, to avoid becoming the victim of many social engineering attacks, you simply need to maintain your situational awareness. Now, situational awareness is a term used to describe a state of mindfulness about one's immediate surroundings, the actions you're asked to perform, and to understand that the action may have negative consequences if you do perform it. For example, shoulder surfing is one such attack that can be prevented by maintaining good situational awareness. Shoulder surfing involves the attacker attempting to peek over your shoulder to look at sensitive information on your screen. To counter this kind of an attack, you must always be aware of your surroundings, especially in public spaces, and use a privacy screen protector, as well as being cautious about reading any confidential information outside of your secured areas. Eavesdropping is another attack, and it's similar to shoulder surfing, but with eavesdropping, our attacker is attempting to listen in on our private conversations or our meetings in order to breach our security. To prevent this, you should only hold sensitive discussions in soundproofed or secure areas, and always be aware of any smart devices, like smartphones, smartwatches, or other devices that may have been brought into the room, because these could be hacked to remotely record and listen to a given conversation. Now, if you're having a conversation with a colleague about work matters during lunch at a local coffee shop, you could easily fall victim to eavesdropping, so it's really important that you're always aware of where you're having your discussions about your confidential workplace information to prevent eavesdropping from being successful. Now, as you can see, shoulder surfing and eavesdropping usually require the attacker to get close to you to execute their attack, and one of the ways they may try to enter your secure office building is to use social engineering attacks like piggybacking or tailgating, where unauthorized individuals slip into secure premises undetected by closely following somebody who has legitimate access. To prevent this, your organization should use access control vestibules to limit entry into your buildings to one person at a time, and to ensure your employees maintain their situational awareness to ensure no one is trying to sneak through the door or security gate behind them as they enter that secured facility. Dumpster diving is yet another social engineering attack that you need to be aware of, and this is one where the attackers sift through garbage to look for any discarded information that might be pieced back together to form a bigger, more informative picture of your confidential data. Again, by having good situational awareness, your employees might be able to catch somebody going through the trash can or recycle bin who's trying to steal information that somebody else carelessly threw away. Now, amid all these multifaceted threats, we also need to look at operational security. Operational security, also known as OPSEC, is one of those things that is a critical shield in your defensive posture, and OPSEC is really a term that was originally coined by the military, and it involves the protection of critical information that might indicate your activities to a potential adversary. When applied inside of a business context, operational security underscores the importance of safeguarding your sensitive data, whether it's your daily routines, your project details, or your internal procedures, from manipulative social engineers. Now, this could mean being more discreet about your work schedule or upcoming business deals, even when you're in casual conversations with your friends or family. Now, why? Well, social engineers are really good at piecing together seamless, innocuous details that are shared over social media, during phone calls, or even during personal interactions to construct a narrative that they can then use to exploit your organization. They can then pretend to be part of your work life, using information you've unknowingly divulged to gain your trust. So, operational security isn't just a protocol, but it's actually a mindset that you need to instill in all of your employees. Operational security at its core requires that you are consistently aware that any piece of information you have is really a part of a bigger puzzle that somebody can then use to craft an attack against your organization. Now, all of these types of social engineering attempts really do underscore the need for constant vigilance and situational awareness because our actions might potentially be watched by an attacker. Beyond these human threats, though, we also need to worry about technological attacks that are used by social engineers, like removable media devices and cables that are used as part of a baiting attack. For example, let's imagine you just parked your car at the office and you're walking towards the front door. On the ground, you see a USB thumb drive sitting there. You're worried that it may have fallen out of one of your coworkers' pockets on their way to the office, so you simply pick it up and carry it over to your desk. When you get to your desk, you decide to plug in that thumb drive into your workstation to see if you can find the name of the owner by reading a few of the files that are stored on that drive. Well, by doing this, you may have just unknowingly infected your workstation or the entire organizational network with malware because that USB drive wasn't dropped by one of your coworkers. Instead, it was dropped by a social engineer, and they used it as part of a baiting technique to put that thumb drive in the parking lot outside of this office building in the hopes that somebody like you would pick it up and connect it to their own workstation because they were curious as to what was on that thumb drive. Now, to prevent this from occurring, you should never pick up any USB thumb drives that you find, and if you do pick it up, you should never ever connect it to your computer because it could infect you with malware as soon as you plug it into the system. In recent years, people have become even smarter and they stopped falling for this USB thumb drive bait as often. So, social engineers ramped up their capability as well and moved on to using charging cables in public areas as their form of bait instead. These cables can include malware in their firmware that will infect your iPhone or Android phone once you connect your phone to that charger. This type of charging cable bait is particularly effective in public areas like airports, lounges, coffee shops, and other places that offer public charging. For this reason, I recommend that you always carry your own charging cable and charger with you wherever you go so you're not relying on an untrusted charging cable or charging unit when your battery gets too low. Next, let's take a look at some of the more subtle, more insidious tactics that are employed by social engineers that rely more on their ability to be a con artist in order to gain your trust and manipulate you in a given situation. For example, you may have received a phone call or an email from somebody claiming to be from your information technology support department, and they're requesting some sensitive information from you. This social engineer is attempting to create a sense of urgency or a sense of fear by insisting that you are facing immediate legal or financial repercussions if you don't do exactly what they tell you to do right now. This kind of pressure tactic is designed to make you act quickly and to bypass your organization's normal security protocols. These types of attacks are quite often effective because people are more likely to make mistakes when they're rushed into taking some form of action. Finally, it's important for us to avoid a social engineer's traps by being proactive and avoiding being reactive. To do this, you should foster a proactive culture of security in your organization by regularly training your employees on cybersecurity, regardless of their position inside of your company. It's really important that all of your organizational employees learn to recognize phishing attempts, understand the importance of data privacy, and know what constitutes safe online behavior. By creating an environment where employees feel responsible for safeguarding the data and they're encouraged to report suspicious activities, we can prevent social engineering attacks from being successful against our organization. To fully train your employees, it's also important that you include practical exercises, such as simulated phishing attacks, to test how individuals might respond to an attempted breach, and then remediate any employees who happen to fall for the simulated phishing attack so they don't get fooled again in the future. So remember, in our pursuit of robust cybersecurity, we must remember that technology alone isn't enough to keep us safe online, because we also have to consider the significant weight that the human element has in our organization's security. Each person is going to be a gatekeeper to our organization's data, and they play a pivotal role in thwarting potential social engineering attempts. Our employees must remain ever vigilant, aware, and always maintain a good understanding of social engineering tactics to best protect our organization against these types of attacks. In this lesson, we're going to cover policies and handbooks. Now, policies and handbooks are not just documents that are gathering dust on your shelf or take up storage space on your computer, but instead, you should really use these as living, breathing guidelines that shape your behavior, decision-making, and protocols within your organization. Now, it is crucial to understand that these policies and handbooks aren't going to be the same across every organization you work at, because each organization will operate their business functions based on their specific industry, needs, and use cases. Therefore, your organization's policies on data management, for example, might be drastically different from the one you used at another company that you previously worked at. This is why it is really important that you not just read your organization's policies and handbooks, but that you also fully comprehend and understand them. So, what is a policy and what is a handbook? Well, a policy is a deliberate system of principles and rules that guide decisions and achieve rational outcomes, and they're typically crafted to uphold an organization's internal controls and ensure compliance with legal and ethical standards. A handbook, on the other hand, is a comprehensive guide, usually in booklet form, that provides detailed information on procedures, guidelines, and best practices to assist individuals in understanding and navigating specific operational aspects of an organization. These policies and handbooks can be written to cover a myriad of different things inside your organization. For example, you might have a policy on data protection, one for remote work, another for acceptable use of technology, and yet another for conflicts of interest and things like that. On the other hand, handbooks might be created for employees, another one for training, another for compliance, and things like that. For example, let's assume you just got hired on at a new company, and you want to throw away or discard a 5-page printout that contains sensitive data on it, like your organization's last quarter sales numbers that are not yet being released to the public. How should you dispose of this paper? Should you throw it away? Should you recycle it? Should you shred it? Should you burn it? Well, it all depends. But if you check your organization's data destruction policy, it will clearly define the right way for you to dispose of this type of printout that contains your organization's sensitive financial data on it. At one organization I worked at, there was a policy that stated that anything that was printed out that contained sensitive information had to be printed on a specific printer that was loaded with pink paper. In that same policy, it stated that any pink paper was not allowed to be thrown away or recycled. It had to be shredded using a crosscut shredder to prevent any of that sensitive data from being the victim of a dumpster diving attack. Now, I also worked at a high-security governmental organization in the past, and they had a similar process, where white paper was used for unclassified documents, pink was used for secret documents, and yellow was used for top-secret documents. For white documents, you could recycle them. For pink documents, you could shred them. But for yellow documents, you had to incinerate or burn them using our organization's internal processes. Another common area that you need to review inside your organization's policies and handbooks concerns remote work or taking work home. These days, remote work and work from home have become fairly normal in most industries, but several organizations still do not allow this to occur because of a wide variety of security issues that could arise from allowing remote work or work from home. So, you need to review your organization's policies and handbooks to determine what the remote work policy is going to be, because many organizations have strict guidelines on what type of information can actually leave the physical confines of their office building. These policies and handbooks aren't just focused on the digital files, but they also include what you should be doing with physical files that somebody may want to take home with them to do work at home. For example, when I worked at that high-security government organization, we were not allowed to have smartphones or personal digital assistants inside of the building. So I always carried around with me an old-fashioned notebook all day long to take notes at all the various meetings I attended. I'd also write down any tasks or appointments I had, and things like that. Now, at the end of the day, I can't take this notebook home with me, though, because it has sensitive information written in it about things that were secret or top secret, depending on the meetings I was attending during that day. So, this organization had a policy that said what kind of things could be taken home with you and worked on, and which ones couldn't. For example, if I had to do my annual cybersecurity training, I could do that from home because I could log into an internet-based website and complete it from there as part of my work from home hours. But for about 99% of the other things I did on a weekly basis, I couldn't do those at home because they were classified as secret or top secret. And so I couldn't work on those things unless I was inside of the official government building, because that's where that secret information was located. In fact, at this organization, anytime you left the building, they would actually look through your backpacks, your briefcases, and your purses to ensure you didn't inadvertently take home any documents that might violate their data protection policies. Now, this isn't just a matter of trust. It's about securing the organization's information, and your home probably hasn't been vetted by your organization's security team to hold top secret information, right? So, we don't want any secret or top secret documents sitting in your home office where somebody can break into your house and steal them easily. Instead, we want them in our secure facilities that are provided by the government. Now, up to this point, I've been focusing on policies and handbooks that tell us what we aren't allowed to do. But a lot of policies and handbooks will also provide you with guidance for navigating your day-to-day responsibilities and what you are allowed to do. For example, these policies and handbooks are going to cover everything from how to handle a data breach to the steps for reporting suspicious activities. Let's pretend for a moment that you just received a strange email, and as you read that email, your gut tells you there's just something not right about it. Well, how do you report it? If you check the chapter in your employee handbook, it'll tell you who to contact, what information to provide, and how to isolate the potential threat that is represented by this email for your organization's systems. These policies and handbooks also evolve over time because cybersecurity isn't static, and what was relevant 2 years ago might not be something we need to think about today. For this reason, every policy and handbook needs to be reviewed at least once per year and updated as appropriate. Additionally, when the policy or handbook is updated, your organization must ensure that your employees take the time to read the latest versions as well. If there's any significant changes, you should probably highlight those in a single one-page summary too and provide that with the policy. After all, you don't want a system administrator who missed a memo on the updated protocol for your organization's password complexity to not implement those changes on your domain controller or other important systems and servers simply because they missed the memo. Now, as much as we rely on these policies and handbooks, it is worth noting that they are not foolproof. Mistakes are going to happen, breaches are going to occur, and new threats are going to emerge that may not have been covered in your training or in your handbook. For this reason, it's important to train your employees on the why behind your policies and handbooks because they may be asked to make a judgment decision when the policy doesn't specifically cover something that comes up in their daily work. Your policies and handbooks should always be designed to foster a secure environment and a culture of mindfulness. If you encounter something that doesn't fit the mold, it's not just your right, but also your responsibility to bring it up to your management and leadership teams because that way they can provide you guidance and help you in that decision making. This is what we're referring to when we talk about creating a culture of security. So remember, your organization's policies and handbooks are going to be used to help you make informed decisions and be a proactive part of your organization's cybersecurity mechanisms. They serve as guides, not guardrails, to help your employees understand the principles behind them and recognize when something doesn't quite line up. So take the time to read your organization's policies and handbooks, and if you're ever in doubt, ask for additional guidance or clarification from your management or leadership team. After all, there is no question that is too insignificant to your organization's overall cybersecurity posture, except the one that isn't asked. In this lesson, we're going to cover remote and hybrid work environments. These days, it is pretty common for most organizations to allow their employees to work remotely or to work in a hybrid work environment. This transformation in our professional work environments has really reshaped the way we think about and how we conduct our work on a daily basis. Working remotely or using a hybrid work model does offer us with many different benefits in terms of flexibility, but it also poses some unique security challenges that require us to create a strategic approach to preserving the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of our organization's data when we're operating outside of our typical, normal office environment. First, let's define remote work and hybrid work environments before we dive into any of the specific challenges and potential solutions that you may want to implement inside of your organization. Now, a remote work environment is any environment where the organization's employees work outside of a traditional office space. This type of remote work can occur from the employee's home, a coffee shop, or even while they're on vacation on a cruise ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean with today's always available and online satellite connections. A hybrid work environment, on the other hand, is going to blend the traditional office environment with some remote work opportunities. For example, I personally work using a hybrid model at Dion Training when I work from our offices in Orlando, Florida a few times a week, and then I do the rest of my work from home, a local coffee shop, or a hotel room if I'm on travel. Now, when we have our employees conducting business on behalf of our organization outside of a traditional office space, there's inherently going to be additional risk that we're going to be assuming since a lot of our organization's physical security controls simply won't be extended into these remote or hybrid environments. Additionally, from a purely technological perspective, data and information that used to be transferred over an internal network within a single secured office building is now going to be transmitted outside of that building, and it could be accessible to our employees from their homes, the local coffee shop, or even a hotel room located in another country halfway around the world. All of this takes the information out of our most trusted internal networks, and now it's transmitting over a mixture of public and private networks that could potentially have the data or information exposed by a malicious attacker who's seeking to cause a data breach. Now, at the core of this risk is that our home networks and any public networks we might use, like a hotel or coffee shop's wireless network, will have less stringent security controls in place as compared to our organization's usual office-based infrastructure. These networks are going to be susceptible to cyber attacks, including eavesdropping through unencrypted connections or even direct infiltration by using a weak Wi-Fi password for that network. Employees, unaware of the sophisticated tactics employed by most cyber criminals, might inadvertently expose your organization's sensitive data, which makes cybersecurity training something that every remote or hybrid worker must complete to ensure your organization remains resilient against these kinds of attacks. Now, in addition to these technical attacks, we also need to be more concerned with the physical security of our devices when we're operating remotely or under a hybrid model. In a regular office environment, our environment is totally under our organization's control so that any access can be restricted to only those who are authorized to get in the building. However, in a remote setting, the chances of the device being lost or stolen will be increased, and without proper safeguarding protocols like robust encryption and the capability to remotely wipe the device's data, the information contained within that device could quickly fall into the hands of a threat actor. So, to address these challenges, we must establish comprehensive policies that clearly define the acceptable practices for remote work to ensure that our employees understand the responsibility in helping to protect our organization's data. These guidelines should stress the need to always use a secure connection, like a VPN, when connecting back to the company's network in order to access that data. This will ensure that the data is encrypted end-to-end to be able to shield that data from any potential interception and modification by a given threat actor. Now, another way to protect your organization's data when using remote or hybrid environments is to require the use of multi-factor authentication systems to create an additional layer of security in case your users' login credentials do get compromised. By using multi-factor authentication systems, you can make sure that it is harder for unauthorized users to access your organization's sensitive information because it's going to require that they use multiple forms of verification before entry is granted to that system. Now, employees must also become educated and regularly updated on the current cybersecurity trends, including recognizing phishing attempts, safely handling and storing data, and immediately reporting security incidents when they're working remotely or in a hybrid environment because they are more susceptible to an attack because they're outside of our normal organizational protections much of the time because they're always working remotely. By conducting training, you can help build a company culture where security is not just something people talk about, but it's actually something they have a shared commitment that all of your employees are striving to achieve. If your organization relies on remote or hybrid work environments as part of their architecture, it is a really good idea to require the use of company-issued devices for all remote work to ensure the highest levels of security. These devices, including laptops, tablets, and smartphones, should be fully equipped with up-to-date security software, firewalls, and other monitoring tools that provide real-time protection and threat detection. For example, if you're going to allow personal devices to be used under a Bring Your Own Device or BYOD policy instead of using a CYOD or COPE policy, then your organization must outline the required security measures, like installing official security software updates and regular patching and updates, to be able to ensure the security of these personally owned devices that are being used for remote work in your organization. But since the employees own the device, this can actually complicate the securing of the device because the organization doesn't own it and doesn't have rights to install software on it without the employee's permission. Another critical thing to consider with remote and hybrid work environments is how are your backups going to be conducted. Automated backups, whether on a secure physical server or a cloud-based one, can be used to protect your data against loss and provide a recovery option in case a ransomware or other type of cyber attack is going to occur. Now, when working in a remote or hybrid environment, it's also important that you put in place the proper collaboration tools and platforms so that your employees can remain productive while working outside of the office. When choosing a collaboration tool or platform, you should always choose one that prioritizes the security of your organization's data. Some things that are considered to be part of your tool or platform selection criteria should include the use of end-to-end encryption, robust administrative controls, and compliance with international security standards. Finally, it's important that you always maintain a clear line of communication between your cybersecurity team and your remote employees to ensure that any issues can be addressed promptly to ensure the potential risks are always kept at bay. Regular security audits and feedback sessions with your remote staff will also help your security team to update their security protocols when necessary and allow them to fix any potentially overlooked vulnerabilities. So remember, as remote work and hybrid work environments become increasingly more common in our organizations, we have to continually become more proactive to secure our assets outside of our traditional office environments. To secure these remote and hybrid work environments, we have to utilize robust security protocols, provide employee cybersecurity awareness training, stress the employee's responsibility to secure their own devices, as well as utilizing a continuous adaptation to emerging cybersecurity threats so they can best safeguard our corporate data against the ever-changing threat landscape that we face on a daily basis. By embracing these best practices, your organization can confidently navigate the complexities of these working arrangements while maintaining the integrity and confidentiality of their business operations. In this lesson, we're going to cover how to create a culture of security in your organization. Now, establishing a culture of security is extremely important in your organization. After all, you can install all the high-tech firewalls and encryption systems you want, but if your employees don't value security, then they're simply going to bypass or ignore these technical solutions, and the threat actor will be able to infiltrate your networks. Creating a culture of security involves weaving cybersecurity into the very fabric of your organization's ethos, behaviors, and everyday decisions being made by all of your employees. This transformation is a complete shift in the mindset of your organization and must use organizational change management, strategic development, comprehensive execution, and constant monitoring and reporting to achieve your new security-focused culture. Our goal here is clear, to ingrain cybersecurity into every part of our organization so we can all make better decisions to protect and defend our organization and its valuable information. Now, to create this change, we're going to rely on the principles of organizational change management, or OCM. Now, organizational change management begins by understanding the human element's role in security by acknowledging that most sophisticated security systems can falter without your staff being fully engaged and adhering to your policies and procedures. So, to be effective, your organizational change management should begin at the top of your organization within your executive leadership team to illustrate their commitment to security so that the tone is set for all of your organization's personnel, internal relationships, and operations. Your leaders must communicate the importance of cybersecurity not as a mandated directive, but as a corporate responsibility that is shared equally by everybody, all the way from the executive suite to your low-level, seasonal, or part-time employees. First, we enter the development phase of our security programs where strategic planning takes center stage. It's not enough to declare that cybersecurity is a priority for your organization, but you also must create specific and actionable plans that are backed up with the proper resource allocations to make them a reality. During this phase, you should create comprehensive policies that outline the acceptable practices and protocols in your organization, as well as educating your employees about potential threats like phishing and social engineering, and implementing clear guidelines for handling your organization's sensitive data. Beyond rules and restrictions, though, this phase must also build a foundation for empowerment so that your employees feel confident in their ability to recognize and respond to potential cyber threats. Now, once the development is concluded, the execution phase will begin. It's important to realize that the execution phase isn't a one-time event, though, but it's more of a continual process. This involves rolling out new policies and conducting training sessions to mark the start of what must be a sustained effort over time. After all, the security landscape is ever-changing and ever-evolving, so your strategies and tactics must also adapt over time. Your organization must also ensure that regular training updates, simulated cyber attacks, and consistent communication about threats are part of your standard operating practices on a daily basis. This is the key to making security considerations a habit in your organization and not just an afterthought, so it's crucial that you always embed these practices into your everyday workflows. However, without a system for reporting and monitoring in place, even the most thorough strategies will ultimately face failure. To ensure the strategy is successful, you should begin with some initial monitoring after the rollout of a new security program to address any immediate issues that must be identified. Then, you should move into a more recurring set of check-ins that helps to maintain the program's integrity over the long term. This approach means that we are monitoring the network for potential breaches, as well as ensuring that we're tracking employee compliance with our security protocols, assessing the effectiveness of our current strategies, and identifying any areas for potential improvements. Additionally, all of your employees must be educated on how and where they can report any suspicious activities within your organization. An atmosphere where staff members are hesitant to report incidents because they fear being blamed for a potential issue is considered to be very counterproductive to our goal of increasing our security. Instead, we are aiming to cultivate an environment that encourages the reporting of potential incidents and one where employees' input is valued highly to help us improve our organization's security measures. To help with this, we need to create feedback loops to ensure that any insights gained from our monitoring and reporting activities will be directly influencing our future actions so that our program can continue to evolve and increase in its effectiveness. This cycle of learning and adapting is what really helps organizations to stay ahead of any new or novel cyber threats that may be introduced over time. So remember, creating a culture of security is a comprehensive endeavor that is all about making the organization more resilient against a cyber attack by ensuring that each individual understands their role in safeguarding the organization's sensitive digital assets. When security becomes second nature in your organization, you're going to see that employee vigilance becomes an inherent trait inside of your culture, and that your organization doesn't just protect its interests against current threats, but also becomes better equipped to face the uncertainties that may appear further out in the future. By having a more proactive security posture, your organization will build its reputation on the basis of trust, and it will allow your organization to improve its operations while maintaining the security of its most sensitive data.